What up YouTube, Specbard here with another video, and this time it's going to be a live review of a movie called Joe Kidd. I was originally going to do it with the new editing style, but the video got struck with copyright. Copyright is a bitch on YouTube. So I'm just going to do it this way. So anyway, let's begin. Joe Kidd is a revisionist Western movie that was released on July 19th, 1972. Well, it seems like I'm reviewing another Clint Eastwood movie. Well, you know me, he is one of my favorite actors. Though it also has Robert Duvall, which I've reviewed a few movies with him in too. Though I have to say this is not one of their best movies. I've seen it 3 times, and each time I've seen it, my opinion has soured more and more. So let's see why that is. The story follows Joe Kidd, who's an ex-bounty hunter who is offered to help a landowner and his henchmen go after a Mexican revolutionary by the name of Louis Chamor. Joe initially refuses until his friends get attacked by Chamor, so he goes along to stop them. The story is honestly not that great. The main problem I have with the movie is Joe Kidd as a character. I get that Clint Eastwood often plays characters who seem like they don't give a damn, but nothing about Joe is consistent. He seemingly wants to be locked up in jail, which I don't know why the fuck he would ever want to be in jail, especially since it was an unlawful arrest. He was accused of shooting a deer that was clearly within legal boundaries to do so and pissing off a ranger. Also, the fact that Frank Harlan, the landowner, bails him out of jail should be a good reason to hunt down Chamor. Although, to be fair, Joe says he doesn't have any reason to dislike Chamor at this point. Of course, that changes when Chamor attacks his friends. But later on, he notices that the henchmen are trying to desperately attack him. He also knows that Chamor has a wife, or at least a girl who likes him. So after all that, he ultimately decides to side with Chamor. Okay, first of all, there was little to no build-up to him siding with Chamor. Wouldn't he not want to side with him if he attacked his friends? He doesn't even fucking mention them ever again. Do they not matter to him anymore? Also, Chamor isn't exactly a very agreeable guy. Even when he finally meets him, he seems pretty stubborn and brutal and only really cares about getting what he wants. It takes them a lot of convincing, and even then, it's hard to believe that he would agree to this plan. What I'm saying is, I don't know what Joe's motivation is. For me to root for a character, I kind of need to know that. Also, it doesn't really help that there are a ton of fucking scenes of dialogue that are just not that interesting. I will say, these scenes are not totally awful, at least I can understand the dialogue, but they pale in comparison to a lot of the dialogue scenes in other Clint Eastwood movies. Most of the other movies have very memorable quotes that I might even use out of context, but this movie is seriously lacking in these scenes. That's not to say there are none in this movie, but they're very few and far between. That also may have to do with the fact of some other technical problems, which I'll get to the first one right now. This is probably the shortest Clint Eastwood movie, clocking in at 1 hour and 28 minutes. I think that explains a lot. I feel like the short runtime makes the pacing feel a bit rushed. We do not get enough time to really flesh out Joe's motivation. This is one of those cases where I feel like adding an extra 6 or 7 minutes might have benefited this movie. Also, compared to most of other Clint Eastwood's characters, Joe's pretty tame, all things considered. I mean, yeah, he does kill people, but you could argue that the world would probably be better off without them. He also isn't quite the angry, badass anti-hero that we normally see him as. I mean, there are a few moments like that, but then again, Schaefer is a bit different, but even he is closer to that badass anti-hero than Joe Kidd is. Now, as for the action scenes, they're good, but not great. I will say they are filmed and edited pretty well for the most part. However, they are actually way too fucking short. They just don't leave as big of an impact as they could have. I think the setups are better than the scenes themselves. Now, as for the production values, the cinematography is a bit of a step downward from most of Clint Eastwood's other movies. It's a bit more muted and not quite as visually striking to look at. The editing is a little bit iffy. The actual editing is fine, but I feel like there were some scenes that were cut down too much. The sound and sets are pretty good. The music is actually pretty good, all things considered. Sure, there's not a lot of it, but when it does come up, it is pretty melodic. And there's an especially memorable melody that plays in the middle of the movie and during the trailer. It's the da 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 da. It is definitely better than the Dirty Harry scores, that's for damn sure. Overall, Joe Kidd is a pretty lackluster movie. I feel the story is not all that great. Nor are the action scenes really. The production values, well, were not the greatest, but I will say they were probably the strongest aspect of this movie. It pains me to call a Clint Eastwood movie mediocre, but hey, they can't all be good. Besides, I would still rather watch this over City Heat. Now that one might be the worst fucking movie that Clint Eastwood has ever done. But yeah, there are so many better films in his filmography. I give Joe Kidd 2 out of 5 stars with the title of Okay But Lacks Staying Power. Anyway, I'm Spike Robot. If you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel, and feel free to support me on Patreon and X, Pinterest, and Instagram. And give this video a like. It really does help me out. Anyway, see you next time on Other Freedom Jingos.